And we are live, Caroline. We're both like, huh? Yes. Have we started yet? Hello, hello. It is Friday. It's the end of January, which I actually can't really fathom. And I'm scheduling things into April right now. And welcome, welcome, no matter whether you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook. This is the place just about every Friday afternoon to show up for a half an hour and join a casual conversation about nonprofit technology stuff. My name is Maureen. I'm a nonprofit digital strategist and technology coach, and my passion in life is helping nonprofits make good decisions around really complicated stuff. Like even an email marketing tool, you got to think about a little bit these days, which is good, but also it's easy to maybe pick the wrong thing or not use it in the most efficient way. And I am thrilled beyond belief to bring Caroline Fothergill in for her second time. And I don't always bring people back for a second visit. Caroline, how are you this afternoon or this morning where you are today?
Hello. Yeah, it's 9:30 for me. I'm still caffeinating, but doing great.
I'm on water now. Yeah. Caroline, want to do a little intro of yourself and your business and your background for folks who didn't catch the first time you were on last year?
Sure. Hey, everyone. My name's Caroline Fothergill. I go by the Marketer on a Mission. And my background is in-house with nonprofits doing marketing and communications for a number of years. I was agency side for a little while, and now I'm a solopreneur digital strategist, and I love designing and running digital marketing, fundraising, and ad campaigns for nonprofits.
You know, not everyone uses the word love in that sentence, Caroline.
I know.
I recognize that. Like it. I know it. What do you love about nonprofit digital campaigns?
I love helping nonprofits embrace marketing and advertising because there's this like yucky, outdated paradigm around keeping that overhead slice of the pie at 10%, and we're not supposed to do marketing. And you're a business, and in order to do more good, you need to grow and reach more people and raise more money. And I just like helping organizations embrace that and realize that the ROI is there.
I love the word embrace, because when you think about a lot of the things that nonprofit folks do, marketing, fundraising, email communication, social media management, whatever it is under that marketing umbrella, I think we tend not to lean on those tools or those tactics or those best practices because we just feel like, will it work?
Yeah.
It feels a little risky to mix things up, especially in a pandemic that continues to affect all of us. Do you find that folks that you work with are generally forward, neutral, or resistant when it comes to really leaning into their digital plans and execution?
Most of the organizations I work with are hiring me because they're ready to embrace it and try something new and make the investment. But there's always a little bit of fear around a campaign because by definition, it's something different from what you're doing on a daily basis. And what I love about digital is we're no longer slapping up a billboard or throwing an ad in the paper and hoping someone responds. We can track whether it's working. And if it's not working, we can pull the plug, we can make changes along the way. So it's a lot less risky, in my opinion.
Sure. And, we got to respect the direct response. We all us digital folks have to respect the big power that direct response and mail still brings in a lot of money. Totally. It's just how it is. We're growing. Digital continues to grow. Rock on. But I do think that if you have done your segments badly, if you haven't had the ability to test how a story will perform,
Mhm.
all of the cost and time that goes into a piece of something printed or a billboard or an ad spot, a radio ad or something like that, you can't really take that back and tweak it. You sort of have to let it run. And that agility, I think, is both a blessing and a little bit overwhelming for many nonprofit marketers.
Yeah. What's cool about digital is you can use it to A/B test before
Mhm.
you do a print piece or a big ad spend. You could run a small ad campaign with a couple $100 to test a few different images or different messaging, see what performs the best, and then pull that into your big campaign.
Mhm. And testing is good. It reduces the risk. It kind of, if executive leadership or C-level folks are nervous about trying something new, it's a really safe way to test something before everybody sees it. You can sort of
Totally.
put a finger in the wind. So digital campaign plans, our three favorite words here, I think, between the two of us. What is a digital campaign plan? Is it different than a campaign plan that someone might run in print? Tell us a little bit about your definition of digital campaign planning.
So I think of a campaign as any push that has a beginning and an end date that's different from what you're doing on an ongoing basis that has one goal. It's either it even within fundraising campaign, there are different variations. You could be going for as many new one-time donors as possible, or maybe you're trying to up level your existing donors. So getting really specific on one goal. And then the planning process is looking at your whole digital presence. You're on all of these channels. You have email, web, social, ads, SEO, all these things, and just going through and thinking about for this one goal and this one audience, which channels are the best fit and how are we going to use them?
Are you saying that all campaigns should not go out through all channels, Caroline?
That's exactly what I'm saying. And that's when I see campaigns go south, is when an organization bites off way more than they can chew, or they're trying to really achieve multiple goals at the same time.
Right. And it's, it's tempting. It's tempting to say, well, this tested well, let's just push it out everywhere. Planning, when you say the word plan, and it's funny because I just promoted this session on LinkedIn yesterday and around the socials, and I was being a little funny in my content, which is we made a plan, and day two it was out the window. Nobody ever uttered the words plan again as we approached this work. We talked about a plan, but we sort of threw it together kind of organically. Or I would love to have a plan, but my teammates don't like working like that. What does a plan bring to the table? How does it give us some ease and comfort?
That's really what it's for. It's for you. It is also going to guarantee the campaign will be more successful. But having in writing, this is who we're targeting, this is the
Mhm.
goal, measurable goal, this is how we're going to achieve it. It takes the pressure off before, during, and also after when you're
Mm,
reviewing how it performed, or you have to show your boss how it performed. And it's like, well, this is exactly what we set out to do, and here's how it went.
mhm,
Simplifies the
mm.
whole process.
It sort of tells the story of
Yeah.
what's going to happen, who plays what role, and also lets you fit it into the other work that marketers and fundraisers are always doing in addition to planning and executing a discrete campaign. Do
Yeah.
you begin with the end in mind? Like it's got to go out on this date or it wraps up on that date and let's work backwards? Or do you start with the goal?
That's a great question. If there's a specific awareness day or month or direct response moment, current event that you need to tap into, then I would start there, because having a sense of urgency or timeliness is always going to help a campaign perform better. When people understand why now, why do you need this from me now? But if it's like, okay, we know we want to run a fundraising campaign in the summer, and we're not tying it to anything necessarily, then start with the goal, and get really specific. Like, what type of donation are you trying to raise, and from what type of person? And then, like, which channels to use, and the message and the creative kind of falls into place when you're really thinking about the person on the receiving end.
I love that idea of who are we trying to cultivate and convert in cold, like fundraising type language, convert to make another gift, or to give a first gift, or to renew their support, or whatever your language is.
Yep.
I think we don't do enough of that. We don't spend the time sort of thinking about who this is for. The goal is usually just raise this amount. And whether it's 6 messages and some ads, or 2 messages and 5 personal phone calls to major donors, the goal is usually the dollar amount or the metric. We want this many more email subscribers, or this many more people to fill out a volunteer form. Do you think nonprofits have the data that they need, generally speaking, to be able to think about that audience targeting in the way that you're recommending?
There are some benchmarks out there. There's some information, but there's nothing compared to what exists for the for-profit sector when they're thinking through designing a campaign. So we are at a disadvantage in that sense. I usually look at, the big benchmarking reports like M&R that come out every year, but I also look at for-profit benchmarks for advertising, for lead acquisition, and I just try to line it up with education, or whatever industry feels closest, so that we don't have everything we wish we had to work off of. But the more you can look at benchmarks and examples instead of just picking a number in the dark, especially because you have to work back from that number to figure out how much you need to spend. If you want 1,000 new email addresses, you're going to have to make an investment, and how much should you be spending? And that information is out there.
That's great, because I think that's another one of those places where leaders fly blind. They know they've got an aspiration of, by the time we start end of year fundraising season, I would like to see this many folks on our email list, for example. So thinking ahead, maybe to the big plan, which everybody's usually got for the last month or so of the year, and making your plans along the way, your digital campaign plans, with that end goal in mind. Is that too much for most nonprofit teams to kind of, amongst all the other things they're doing and the hats they're wearing, be that long game kind of focused? Is that your experience, or do most people think this campaign, this goal, and kick it to the side when it's done, and then I'll work on the next one?
Well, what I usually see is people who are trying to run 15 different things at the same time. But I do think there's always a lot of emphasis on end of year. And we're always thinking about that, which is great. But I love what you just said, Maureen, like, work back months from that. And how are we going to grow the list and cultivate these people for months leading up, instead of getting to October and going, okay,
oh, no.
we have who we have, and we hope it's better than last year,
Yeah. I think there's lots of little nuggets in this conversation that people can take back to their team. And the other thing about a plan, and then we can walk through your planning process, and I know you've got a resource that I'll share the link to in a minute. Planning is usually very collaborative, unless you're a very small organization like it's you. You are the webmaster, you are the email manager, you are the social media liaison.
And the executive director.
Oh yeah, and you're also managing 3 volunteers, on the side. What advice do you give for folks who collaborative working? Oh, and I'm going to bring her back. Let's see. Hi, there you
Sorry,
are.
I
Okay.
lost you.
No problem. It's all good. It's called roll with it. That's the other hidden secret of digital campaign planning or
So
digital
true.
anything. What I was asking was, do you find that the collaborative nature of these digital plans is a hard thing for an organization, to use your words, to kind of lean into?
Yes, I find that there's often a weird siloing of marketing communications and fundraising,
Mhm.
which makes no sense to me because it's all the same funnel. We're pulling people in hopes that they will become donors most of the time. And I think if organizations can make the planning process fun, do a big mega brainstorm together, invite everyone who's going to be a part of executing this campaign
Mhm.
into the planning process because then they're bought in, they're excited, they want it to work.
Mhm.
They'll be much more likely to help out when the time comes and it's rolling and it's live.
Yeah.
And that even involves pulling in existing donors or volunteers
Mm.
or folks on your list who are engaged and get their opinion. Maybe you have 3 ideas, run them by a few people who are going to participate. And you might find out that one would be a total flop and they love the other one. And that's hugely valuable free information.
And there are donors out there who are itching to
Yeah.
sort of give their opinion or play ride along in some kind of helpful way. I've seen some organizations create they call it a philanthropist task force,
Love that.
and it feels fancy, and maybe twice a year they get together and they talk about what might work, and they use them as a test group. They'll send test appeals to them and get their 2 cents before they send out the actual final product. So they've got their own little mini brain trust of some donors who maybe even have a background and expertise in this kind of digital communication and engagement work.
It's so
Um,
smart because we're always looking for things to ask those folks for in between asking them for money. This is a perfect, they're going to feel smart, valued, and it will make the final result much better.
and they'll often share that stuff. Like, I helped, they asked my
Totally.
opinion about, and then there goes that stuff around on Instagram or wherever it's going to go.
Yeah.
All right. I'm a logical, sequential person. I love plans. So tell me, Caroline, your steps, just very high level, first, second, third, how you'd lead a client who's working with you through a digital planning process. And I'm going to pop the link to your free resource in here too.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I created a workbook last year, partly as an exercise for myself to get my process out of my head onto
Right.
paper, and give it away for anyone whenever it's helpful to work through it. But I usually start by just listing out what are all of the assets we're working with here? What are
Mhm.
all of the digital channels that we're on? And there's a big checklist, and you might be surprised to see that you have 15 or 20 different platforms, accounts, things on the internet that you could utilize for a campaign. And then you have all of these relationships that are assets, partnerships, existing donors, volunteers, your staff. So I think it's helpful. It helps break out of the scarcity mindset to start with a list of what do we have working for us right
Right.
now. And then we move into who are we trying to reach, identifying that specific audience, and what's our goal here. And once we have those figured out, we go back to our list of assets and we pick out the channels, partnerships, people who are the right fit for our audience and goal.
Those are the first 2 steps that you can, once you do them once, and I
Yeah.
think it's true for campaign planning, digital planning writ large. Once you do this a couple times, it doesn't feel so foreign anymore. Maybe you've
Totally.
never planned like this before. It's sort of been like, okay, send that out. Use this
Yeah.
picture of a tree, and like send it out. It's very kind of organically thrown together, let's say. So once you give yourself this discipline, especially of these first two steps, I think you're more likely to do proper follow-up on the next steps that you're going to describe.
Yeah, definitely. And once you have the assets mapped out, the goals mapped out, then you get collaborative. You can pull your team in and do a big brainstorm. I feel like you're saying, Maureen, this step gets skipped because everyone's so busy, and it's like, oh, we did that last year. We'll just do that again, or this seems easy. Allow yourselves to have fun and come up with as many ideas, big, bold, wacky ideas as you can. And you might come up with something manageable. You might come up with a big, wacky idea and then find a way to actually make it doable. And it'll be fun and refreshing for your existing base or to bring in new people. So take the time to brainstorm, and that's when you'll get the buy-in from your team too.
So important. Buy-in isn't just, do you agree? Did I give you space to share your imaginative ideas or your cool suggestions? But it's also the right thing to do with your team to let them know what's coming, to know, hey, the website's got to be updated on this date. Does that work for you while the campaign is still getting fleshed out? I find that the reason people get grumpy about planning is because nobody asks them if they can actually achieve those dates or tasks. So the buy-in isn't just like, do you like the way that we're thinking about this? Do you think this will work? But can you deliver on the things that will have your name on them in this plan?
It's so true. After the brainstorming phase, when you've honed in on an idea or a couple of ideas you really like, that's when you get real as a team. Is this manageable, and who has to do what to get this across the finish line?
It's astonishing to me at this late stage in our technical development as like a species that no one knows really how long it should take or how long it typically takes. I think because we can pick up a phone and in 1 second know what the weather is in, Matera, Italy, that it will take 1 second for you to put an audience together or run tests. Do you find that as well, that there's just isn't a good shared knowledge of the level of effort to pull some of these things off?
Totally. I usually recommend a 2-month lead up to running a big campaign. And I don't always get a great reaction to that. Or
How
I
about
have
2 days, Caroline?
Well, I get a lot of those requests. And I
Yeah.
say that would be a waste of your resources, because if this isn't thought through, it's going to be stressful. It's not going to work. Depending on the size and complexity of a campaign, it might be a month of prep might be enough. But 2 months allows 1 month for planning, pulling in the team, getting everything sorted out on paper, and then a month to do all of the writing, get the creative designed, pull in that donor group for their feedback. Like, you don't want to stress yourself out. And when you give yourself enough time, it's actually a fun process.
So like a month to plan minimum, a month to plan, and then a month to build.
Yes.
And then you've moved into execution. So how do you coach folks to actually get through that execution phase with their sanity in check, intact?
For one thing, if you're the one overseeing this campaign, if you're the boss, carve out the time for yourself. If you have a boss, make it known that it will require time every single day to monitor and keep tabs on this, engage with people, that's when a campaign really takes off, when you're commenting and responding to people, and encouraging them to share it, because it's a living, breathing thing. It's not just we schedule the emails and we hope it works.
You know, I want to cross stitch that and like hang it somewhere in my office, because I fall into that trap myself, like it's out there in the world, and it's just like waiting and nail biting and hoping. But what your advice is so smart, which is that's the beginning of the public phase, but that isn't your only responsibility, is automatically sending those emails out when you said you would, or doing those social media posts or ads. It's like there's care and feeding that has to happen before the campaign closes.
Absolutely. And monitoring to make sure you're on track, on pace toward that goal that you set. And if you're not, optimizing, did we not put enough money behind the advertising? Or if the ads aren't performing, can we throw in a new ad or some new copy and see if it works better? You have to be ready to do the work to hit that goal. And then it's not as scary as, oh, we have one shot and we hope it works.
That I would love to change in our industry is, that the evergreen is gone, just like forget about that. I wonder too about goal setting. And one thing I've found over the years is that people are very afraid to publicly, like even internally to their organization, publicly share a goal, because they're automatically thinking they're going to have to find out, they're going to have to give an excuse for why they didn't hit that goal. Is that your experience too? And what tips do you have for just like not defining your personal value on whether or not you hit a goal in a digital campaign?
For one thing, it helped me to get a traditional for-profit marketing grad degree and realize that huge for-profit companies don't always hit their campaign goals. We never hear about that or know that, and they're spending millions of dollars. But sometimes campaigns are just a big learning opportunity. And I get that that is very scary with sacred nonprofit dollars, which is why we do it on a smaller scale typically. We also know for a fact that sharing a goal publicly, a fundraising goal or whatever it is, people are more likely to participate if they're going to see that dial tick up. And if we embrace that, I think a lot of organizations would benefit from embracing that fear, taking that risk, because it's a lot more exciting to participate in that kind of campaign.
Yeah, you're involved. You're sort of cheering people on from the sidelines instead of, here's my $50, hope it helped,
And guess what? They don't pay as much attention as you think they do. So they might see the bar tick up, share it with their friends, and never look again to see whether you hit your goal or not. We're all busy people. So people aren't like judging you or monitoring that as closely as you think they are.
As we get close to time here, because you and I could talk and nerd out on this for like 7 hours. So if anybody wants to get really bored one day, Caroline and I will have like an open Zoom meeting. We'll just like kick around all these things. Do you feel like, what's your stance on recycling campaigns or recycling components of campaigns that performed well a couple of years ago? What's your philosophy? Is it always new, always fresh, or do you sometimes look in the back pocket and see what has worked well in the past and try to use that again?
I am all for repurposing campaigns, because if it worked well the first time, you can give it a little facelift and it'll probably work well again. And you'll be reaching new people who didn't see it the first time and have no idea. I'm repurposing a campaign right now for the spring for a client. They're an Antarctic conservation nonprofit, and we ran a penguin art contest last year for World Penguin Day.
Come
So
on.
much fun. And we had a great time. They hit their fundraising goal. We're going to do it again and start to make it an annual thing that grows, that people look forward to. So there's a lot to be said for that too.
I love everything about what you just said because when it works, we feel like, I guess I can't do that again because it's going to bore people. What a refreshing way to sort of change the narrative on that worked. Let's do it every year. And eventually, if it fizzles out, you can make a polar bear annual art,
Totally.
art contest or something like that. I think you just bring such a breath of fresh air and calm, sort of calm confidence to what is often like a hair on fire, fighting against all odds kind of experience when you're inside a nonprofit organization. Any last tips that you want? If somebody takes nothing else away from this conversation, Caroline, what's like the one nugget that you want them to bring back and actually take some action on?
I think during the campaign planning process, it's so important to think about how your campaign can delight people or solve a problem that they have instead of
Mm.
focusing on solving a problem or hitting the goal for your organization. So, whether it's lead gen or fundraising, what can you put out into the world that is going to make people happy or solve a problem for them? That's when campaigns really succeed. Like, people wanted to dump a bucket of freezing ice water on their heads because they wanted to have fun, share it with their friends, and we're still talking about it, remembering that we did it 10 years later. Can you provide an experience like that for people?
A small one, because I think
Yes.
everybody wants to redo the ice bucket. They want to have a new version of the ice bucket
Yes.
challenge. And I think all of us sort of keep our ear to the ground like, what's that thing that's going to catch on
Yes.
fire? Lightning in a bottle. It just kind of happens.
It
But yeah,
doesn't have to catch, it doesn't have to go viral, but is it giving people an opportunity to draw a penguin if they love to
yeah.
draw? It can be small, small scale.
So great. Oh, I am going to rewatch this. As I said in some of my promotional material, I'm soaking up a lot of new and optimistic ways to look at the same old stuff. Because
Good.
frankly, if you're just like trudging along, it comes across in your messaging and it comes across in your marketing. You've got to feel
Yep.
fresh in some sense. You've got to feel inspired, excited to see what's going to happen instead of, either wringing your hands because you've set a goal that privately or not so privately you're worried about meeting. Or it's just, yep, it's time for our spring campaign and this is what we always do. There's a happy medium there.
That'll be more fun for you too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need to have fun at our jobs, man. That's
Yes.
just not just the same old grind. And it keeps your staff there. They do not want to find another job. It can be like a turnover thing too, because there's a lot of folks out there trying to do things with 5 open spots in their teams right now. And that's
Hmm.
challenging too.
Yeah.
So, with that, Caroline, it is always a pleasure to meet with you and to pick your brain about things. I've got the links. You can also find Caroline on LinkedIn. She's very active on LinkedIn and posts some very, very great and helpful content.
Oh,
Um,
thanks.
it's always a pleasure. And I suspect our paths are going to cross sooner rather than later, even when this little thing wraps up today.
I hope so. Thank you for having me back, Maureen. I love
You're
chatting with you.
welcome.
And I hope that the workbook is helpful for folks if you're ready to tackle this process.
I am going to download my copy as soon as we log off. So, yes, and I will
Awesome.
let people know of that link. So, thanks,
Awesome.
everybody. We will not be doing a live next week, but the following week, I'm bringing in a nonprofit staffer, Eric Burchell from Mustard Seed Communities, who is actually going to talk about how they pulled off their end of year campaign with 3 empty seats on their fundraising and marketing team. How'd they do it? It was a very successful campaign for them. So hopefully those tips will be helpful for you too. Caroline, I'm going to pick your brain about one thing. So as soon as we end the broadcast, stick around because I got one question for you. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend, and we will see you live here in a couple weeks. Bye, everyone.
All.